everybody.
Test, 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 1, 2.
Were the Breaking your chair?
Another meeting.
No, I didn't want anybody to think that Cody was here. He was just turned away from us. We'll call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Larry Milton.
Here.
City Administrator Stan Dobbins.
Here.
Alderman Bill Skanes.
Here.
Alderman Jamie Whitus.
Here.
Melissa Sill.
Here.
Kyle David.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. On our regular agenda today, we have a staff report by somebody. Okay,
Got the minutes to do.
I'll just throw it out there. We have a staff report.
Mayor, the first thing we have is the approval of the minutes for the last time. And as a reminder, we are now live streaming the Human Resources Committee based on the conversation we had in our last meeting.
Very nice. Everybody wave. Hi. I'm not sure where oh, it's right there. Okay, so we needed a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Now we will have a staff report.
Mayor, one of the things that we wanted to, the main thing we wanted to accomplish today was to talk about what are our goals with respect to the modifying our time off. And we've got a new member of our committee, Mr. Kyle David. He is with Mercy, and this is his first time here today. And sir, do you have anything you want to say before we get started?
Honored to be here. Love this community. I'm born and raised here, College of the Ozarks, Hollister High School graduate. So any way I can give back to this community, I would love to. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you.
You got to remember, the first time to come on, you have to buy lunch.
Well, actually,
Where are the ribs?
happen.
Or the
we had the
ribs.
rib. Yeah, we voted unanimous for ribs. Big D's.
All right.
Okay, the one thing that I kind of wanted to start out with an outline of what, kind of what we've gone back and forth with respect to the Employee Human Resources Committee. Brendan Rappenchuk, our IT database manager, anyhow, he's the one who kind of laid out part of what are we trying to fix here? What are we trying to solve? And I think, just for a little background for Mr. David, we have, as employees are awarded both sick leave and vacation time off. Essentially, a new employee starts out with approximately 2 weeks of vacation. It's going to be scaled up for firefighters simply because they they work an average of 56 hours a week versus the 40 hours a week. And that being said, we typically do 96 hours of, or 12 days, if you will, of sick leave per year. The one thing that we've been doing as a practice is upon termination of employment, if you leave in good standing, you get a payout of all of your accrued vacation time and half of your sick leave time, which is, in some respects, it's kind of unique for our market. It's not typically unique for municipalities and public sectors, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the start of the primary thing that we wanted to talk about today is, have this list that we've got up here of the 5 different elements of what is it that we're trying to fix, and elicit additional ideas that this committee might want to see addressed in this overall process. The first one being, like I said, the payout of sick leave upon termination of employment for reasons other than retirement. Sometimes it appears that we reward employees for leaving, but as we've got on kind of some of the background information of that, we have a number of employees that bank on that for various reasons. Their sick leave, upon termination of employment, they look at it as a kind of a payout or a bonus specifically for retirement and things like that, which that's kind of an area of part of the conversation we had in the past in this meeting was, maybe we want to preserve that, but perhaps eliminate it for people just simply leaving to go find other employment. So the next one is, get rid of the stigma that if people use their sick leave, they'll get in trouble for it. In the past, we had what we referred to as sick leave probation. If we give employees 96 hours a year for sick leave, and then we would punish them if they used 80. To the point of if you got put on sick leave probation 2 years in a row, your employment was at risk, which I thought that was kind of odd, that why would we give that and then turn around and punish folks for it? So we eliminated that a few years ago, but the stigma is still there that people have this attitude that, man, if I use my sick leave, I'm going to get in trouble.
Jan, real quick question, real quick.
Sure.
As an ex-state employee, I used to watch them around holidays. If the holiday fell on a Sunday, you were given a Monday off. If it fell on a Saturday, you were given a Friday off. We found a lot of them were filing sick days the day before or the day after to have 4 or 5 day weekends. Do we track that type of stuff here and discourage that?
We do. We have what we leave restriction is part of our policy now. Before, when we had sick leave probation, you actually had to get to that 80-hour mark before you were in trouble for it, and it could be a combination of, Monday, Friday absenteeism and all that fun stuff. Whereas now, we don't necessarily need to wait for that kind of thing. If we see a pattern of an employee taking those kinds of liberties with their sick leave.
Versus annual or
Exactly. And in that respect, if they're on leave restriction like that, we can then require that any absence due to sick leave, they provide a doctor's note for it.
Thank you.
And the next one is the folks, we have folks here who file FMLA paperwork. The idea behind the family medical leave is to protect your job in the event that you have to be gone up to 12 weeks per year for some kind of illness, whether it be yourself or a family member. And they double that essentially for if you're caring for a wounded veteran, that kind of thing. We have something that we refer to as sick leave conversion that we do every year. And if you've used less than 40 hours of sick leave in a year, 40 hours or less, I should say, of sick leave in a year, you can convert 24 hours of sick leave into vacation time. Well, that causes folks to go file FMLA paperwork simply because we do not count FMLA time off, sick time off, as hours used for sick leave in the conversion factor. So that becomes one of those. We've got folks that will file for FMLA paperwork for, let's say they have to have a minor surgery and they'll be off a week. They'll do it for that. And ideally, the premise of FMLA is just to protect your job if you're going to be gone multiple weeks, up to 12 weeks. And we watch that closely, and Bob tracks it. And it's one of those things where it seems to be an unnecessary kind of thing that we're doing here. We're requiring people to do that kind of thing. And it's getting to where it's costing, doctors are starting to charge for that kind of thing. And it's just unnecessary paperwork that has to be managed. And then you have to do notifications, and there's a labor cost associated with it. And it's, in my opinion, it's unnecessary. The fourth item here is that I think it's important that we as an organization be able to strike a balance between providing employees adequate time off, for activities that they want to do, rest, go fishing, whatever it's going to be, and to be able to, recharge their jets, so to speak, and come back and do a good job, because, there's been multiple studies that have shown that, when somebody takes a break, typically when they come back, they are more effective in their roles. But then we need to balance that against having so many hours that we award people that we have to have additional staffing to cover the absences. We find ourselves in many situations that, based on minimum staffing levels, that we have to call people in, and that typically necessitates vacation, or not vacation, but overtime pay that creates an additional cost above and beyond just the vacation time. So I think that's kind of a big one from the organizational perspective, that we need to look at something that makes good sense, so that we're not hiring tons of extra folks just to cover the time off. Not saying we are, but it's one of those that we want to take a look at and see what is that right number. And then the one thing that we had in previous conversations here is, if we were to do something, for example, like go to a paid time off program where we combine sick leave and vacation into one, how do we handle the accrual balances for employees that we currently have? Because we've got a number of employees that have fairly significant banks of hours with respect to, they're saving them for various reasons. They want to have a cushion in the event that they've got medical issues themselves, if they need to take care of family members, things like that. Other folks are doing things, they want to save it up for kind of a bonus, if you will, upon retirement or leaving employment with the city. So ultimately, I didn't want to cause a whole lot of brain damage and overload everybody with all the different nuances that we could look at, but I wanted to hit kind of the top items and see if this committee had any additional major issues that you wanted to address, and let's have a bit of a conversation on how we can address those things. Because ideally, I'd like to be able to do it in a way where there's a good balance between what's good for the city and what's good for employees. Because I think in some respects, based on survey information, employees fear having things taken away from them. And this is an opportunity where it kind of exacerbates their fear when we talk about this kind of thing. They kind of get like antsy and like, okay, what are you trying to do? And so I just want to have a good conversation about how do we address all these things.
I got a qualification statement here. How will you treat exempt versus non-exempt in items 1 through 5?
On exempt and non-exempt, we ultimately, it's the same, we treat them identically. The only thing that would differentiate the two categories would be, obviously, we don't have to backfill with overtime if we've got another exempt employee that's filling in, but that's about it.
Do you utilize compensation in lieu of wages for that additional time off that doesn't count against sick or annual or vacation? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we can. That is under the city administrator's purview. If he sees fit that if vacation time cannot be used adequately or within a reasonable amount of time, he does have that prerogative to pay that out.
Okay, thank you.
Jen, I have a few questions and maybe some suggestions. I will openly admit my mindset is more from the business owner mindset versus municipality. But I know as a business owner, when we gave vacation time, it was what you addressed just a few minutes ago. The intent was to allow the employee to recharge, spend some time, quality time with their family or their hobbies, things they enjoy doing. And we've experienced that it makes the employees, they're refreshed, they get some time off. That was the purpose of providing vacation time in the first place. And so we just saw it as a value of not here's X amount of days we're calling vacation time, but you can save them up and it'll be part of a retirement program. So those employees that did take the time off were just, I'm going to say, more balanced, better moms, dads, employees. So when we, in several businesses, when we had vacation time and probably sick leave time, we were structured where you were giving so many hours a year annually for I'll use vacation right now, for vacation time, and you had up to the next year to use it. So you earned so many hours of vacation time this year, and you earned so many vacation times the following year. But when you get to the second, in other words, you could carry it over 1 year, but you couldn't carry it over for 15 years. Because that was really going against the grain of the purpose of vacation time. If it wasn't called vacation time and it's not used as vacation time, we might as well call it a retirement account. And that's not the intent of vacation time. I'm also a believer of combining sick days with vacation days, something Alderman Skanes just brought up. 3-day weekend, human nature, you call in on a Tuesday, I'm not feeling real well today.
You've never done that.
I have done that. And there again, I don't think that's the intent of, clearly not the intent of using sick days, and then they feel guilty, and then there's this battle of, now you need a doctor's note to come back. So one thought is to combine sick time, vacation time, so you don't have to cough on a Tuesday morning when you call in. You can say, you know what, I'm taking a day. And it'll give me my 4-day weekend, and I think that's logical, and that should be acceptable from the staff's point of view. They have a 3-day weekend and they have X number of days, let them use a couple days, so then they have 5 or 6 days combined together and they may be able to go somewhere or do something. So I would like us to discuss about removing the rigidity, is that a word? Removing the rigidity of you must be sick. If you're not sick, you can carry it forward and have it in retirement, or same with vacation. So I'd be curious how the board feels about that.
Let me follow that up with just a question. Are there any rules or regulations, federal, state, or local, that prohibits us to do something like the mayor has suggested? Is it, if it's allowable, we need to have the discussion.
It is allowable.
Okay, thank you.
I'm an advocate of the PTO system, paid time off. And I understand you've got some employees that have already built up, so I think we just need to set, like, beginning in 2022, we start with the PTO and don't, take anything away from the current employees, is how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not suggesting at all. Any hours that are currently banked, those are off limits because that was under the rules at the time. So I would be against changing the rules midstream. The suggestion is more, as we start a new year, that starts the new process. So everybody, whatever banked hours they have, they still have. But beginning January 1, 22, you have so many hours of, and when you talk about combining the days, but you have so many days. And the intent is to refresh if you get sick, but you have 2 years to use that. Have you been able to look in the financial, our payroll system to see how much money we're carrying, or maybe this is the Jamie question, how much money the city is having to carry as a fund for these obligations?
I looked at the kind of the opposite. I looked at what it's costing us, like on payouts and things like that. I didn't look at the aggregate cost overall for carrying that over. But I would have to think, considering the number of hours that we have, somewhere in the neighborhood of just shy of 35,000 hours of vacation time. When you multiply that out, you could be looking at several $100,000 or close to $1 million. Honestly, I'd have to just do the math.
Not going to put you on the spot. But I'm assuming that's probably a respectable number in our budget that are funds that we cannot touch because they are obligated for this use. Yes, please. Would you come up?
So you're right. So every year when we do the audit and stuff, we do the accruals because we are obligated by the government finance to do the accruals for sick and vacation, and we also do the calculation for used compensation and those kind of things to make sure that we are fully funded. And so I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that they're in our audit statement specifically for the water and sewer because they're proprietary, but we also have those schedules that we do every year for the government as well. So I can get that number for you, but we do have to do that calculation on an annual basis to know that we are fully funded in not just used time, sick time, vacation time, but also in retirement.
Yep.
Would the suggestion he's making simplify the process for you?
Well, the PTO time, I think, is a great idea, honestly. Limiting it to the 2 years, just from my perspective, would kind of be a nightmare in the terms of accounting. However, I'm just telling you from my standpoint as far as limiting it, but PTO, I think, is a great idea, and I think a lot of cities are moving to that. So maybe we can work out the other issues. But from my staff's perspective, as long as we don't take the hours away, which you guys already said you're not going to do that, I think it's a great idea. It gives more flexibility and more freedom.
Before you leave, and here again, I know you don't have this information, but we're talking several $100,000 that we have to set aside?
I'm trying to remember those
Yeah.
numbers. I'd hate to give that. I think it's quite a bit, but I'll go see if I can find it in the annual audit report and try to get you a number before this meeting's over.
That would be excellent.
Okay. I think Marcia's probably on her way to go do that right now, so.
Are they accrued at the same rate, annual and sick?
They're accrued at the rate that they're earned. Does that make sense? So the rate that they're earned is what we accrue, and it's heavily tested because we have to make sure that we're fully funded. You've seen across the country, there's a lot of bigger cities that are not fully funded in their pensions or not fully funded in all of that. So it's a pretty big deal for audit purposes.
Well, we could balance our budget if we started using some of those funds that are set aside and
Look at the.
Well,
we'll promise to fill it up later.
Yeah.
No.
Bill, to help you a little bit, Bill, with your question, they actually accrue based upon the years of service with the city. And it does differ by year of employees, so it would take a little bit of calculating to come up with the actual number.
we do those schedules on only annually at the end of the year for audit. So he's right, and it's based upon your earning and how you earn that, so.
Well,
It's a complex, but it's worthy of
What
it. I'm
about
sorry.
time frames we're talking about here? This obviously is not something that you can generate within 30 days. So if we talk about something being implemented January 1st, do we actually have time to?
Yeah, we probably don't have enough board meetings until then to actually.
Oh, we need more board meetings.
Oh, no.
We can call special ones all the time.
There you go. Just as a minor point is everybody, all general employees accrue sick leave at the same rate. All firefighters accrue sick leave at the same rate. It's vacation that is graduated based on your years of service.
Jan, we did a survey of our employees on this, didn't we?
Yeah.
Do you have the results from that? I would just curious.
I do, essentially. The lion's share of people said, leave things alone. They don't want anything messed with. they like the way it is, they like the security that they have. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have this discussion, is simply because if we change things, then we've got some PR with staff to do, and you know, we need to address it in a way that shows a win-win.
Jan, do we have a maximum number of hours employees can earn until they're
Yes.
cut off?
Yeah, it's 240 hours for vacation and 480 hours for sick leave. Again, it's graduated up for the firefighters simply because they work 2,912 hours a year.
Isn't that also predicated on the years of service? So if you've been 10 years or 15 years with Branson, you accrue more annual and sick?
Yeah, not sick, but just the
Just the
vacation.
annual? Okay.
Can I ask a question? In the survey, did we ask employees if they felt like they were able to utilize their sick and vacation time? Because under this, what are we trying to fix? That's one of the bullet points that I'm wondering if it isn't missing. Do employees feel like they're able to take time off? Is there adequate staffing for them to be able to take time off, whether it's sick or vacation? When they do take time off, are they interrupted during their vacation time? Are they getting phone calls? These are some of the bigger questions that I think we need to know, because
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and yes.
Do you live
Okay.
in my house?
because if they're being constantly interrupted, then it may be a deterrent from them even using the vacation time because they're working anyway.
Ask Cindy Shook, you know, if an additional week of vacation would benefit her, she laughs.
Right. Right. So I think, and I wonder, I mean, we're not the first organization to consider changing from a traditional vacation and sick time off to going to PTO. Have we considered, and Jamie, don't kill me because I know this isn't budgeted, have we considered using a consultant to help us make that move?
That would require, in my opinion, one of the things that I would like to do at some point along the way is have a staffing study done.
Okay.
To say, what does it actually take to do our jobs?
And that's where I was going next, because I think that may be one of our issues because
Absolutely.
there are so many hours that have been accrued. I don't think it's fair just to say that we're rewarding employees for leaving by saving their vacation time.
Exactly.
It's also they're not able to utilize it.
Well, that's it exactly. If I've been here for, let's say, 10 years and I've really been humping it, doing a hard, you know, good job, and then a better opportunity comes along, should I get boxed out of being able to collect on that just because, hey, I found something better, you know, that kind of thing? So to your point, I think you're spot on that we need to understand, you know, we historically as an organization, we've kind of confused FTE, full-time equivalency, and headcount. We look at FTE as one person, when in reality, if it takes a reasonable person doing their job effectively, if it takes them 60 hours to do their job in a week, that's 1.5 FTE. And you're masking it by calling it that, when in reality, that's just headcount.
And I just want to add, I know employees, you said the lion's share want things to stay the same.
Right.
But part of that could be that there has been fear that they're going to have something taken away from them, which, I mean, legally we can't. If they have, you know, earned benefits, we cannot take those away. We just have to figure out a way that we can transfer those to PTO. But I also think that changing it to PTO can be extremely beneficial. And just from my own experience as an employee, I had a terminally ill father, and he did not live with me while he was ill, but his wife, my stepmother, for her own reasons, was unable to take care of him. And so anytime I needed to take off to take him to the doctor or anything else, I had to use vacation time. So there was a long period where I didn't get to take a break unless I was sick and staying home because I was using sick time for myself. So I think that PTO has a lot of different benefits that maybe people don't consider, and that maybe we just need to educate employees on those benefits a little bit more.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot of fear of, hey, they want to take something away from me. You know, that's part of the issue, is want to be able to balance it, saying what makes good sense for the organization and what makes good sense for you. Because one thing you have to take into consideration also is that, you know, people do use this bank of time as a cushion in the event they cannot work, and so that they can get a full paycheck. So, you know, let's say, for example, I do need to be off for 12 weeks. Well, the way we've designed the maximum accruals for sick leave is that would cover your 12 weeks. That being said, if we eliminate that and say you can't use that anymore, or we do something to where it limits that ability, then how do I cover my illness whenever I'm off for 12 weeks? We have to have solid answers for things like that.
I think at one point you had suggested that we use a disability system, short-term disability
Yeah,
system.
we do have that in the chute where we could cover more than 12 weeks. Effectively, it's 3 months. We could cover with a disability where we would exclude the first 2 weeks. So we would have employees use their sick leave for that first 2 weeks, and then at that point, the insurance would then cover the rest of their wages. It would be a 60%, roughly a 60% payout of their normal wage rate, but that would be, it would not be taxed as normal wages, and as such, it's like their net, if you will. So they're whole in that respect.
Okay, and I think that would be very important and something that we should consider moving forward with the PTO.
From an organizational perspective, that does cost. It's
course.
about $50,000 a year for all of our employees.
Okay, thank you.
Jan, if I could, honestly, from what I heard, maybe the first place we should start would be the staffing study. Do you have any idea what one of those cost?
I've looked at them. It's been about 3 years since I looked at them. They ranged anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000.
I saw Jamie just like almost fall out of her chair, but would you think that would be where the starting point would be?
I would love to be able to do something like that, because that would give us an idea of what our labor requirements truly are. And I think to a certain degree, we've been shooting in the dark for a long time.
I agree with that. It's just, I'm looking at trying, and I'm pretty sure this is all of us, trying to make the right decision without damaging our current employees and understanding what we truly need as the city to operate and function for our community. So that was kind of my 2 cents worth, and I'm one of the guys that I don't use sick leave. I did this year because I had to get a new knee put in because I'm getting old, but I'm one of those guys that unfortunately I am getting older, and I worry about having a heart attack or something and how long that takes to recuperate before you can come back to work. So that's why I save my sick time. It has nothing to do with my retirement. It actually has to do with taking care of my family.
Do we have minimum years of employment for the payout?
No, sir.
No, okay. Is that something that we could look at?
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
that would be a money
Everything's
saver.
on the table.
Yeah, because I could see where it does encourage people to leave if they can bank that up and then they have it and it's paid out.
Right.
Now, if you looked at like a 1 to 3 year model for if you stayed 1 year, just throwing a number out, 25% of it could be paid out, and then you could go up to the maximum of 3 years. You have to stay with the company, and then it's paid, or with the city.
Actually, that was one of the models I'd looked at, because that becomes a retention hook for people. It's like, yeah, do I really want to leave?
Yep.
Jen, question, because we're talking about this study and efficiency and the like. Is that something that can be taken on internally by our own human resources group or with this group together? I'm actually asking that because as we've gone through the budget, we've pinched so many pennies.
Sure.
To try to get this thing to a point where we balance it. And talking about adding $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to the bottom line, I could look over at Jamie and see her wins as well. And it's not been a bruising battle, needless to say, but trying to get this thing balanced and get raises out there has been a Herculean effort by all group, and just asking whether that can be done internally is all.
It would
Not
be
to throw cold water on
It
it.
would be a bit of a challenge, simply because, you'd need a little bit of expertise. In my opinion, you'd need a little bit of external expertise because, you know, everybody that's in charge of their departments are going to say, well, I'm staffed appropriately, or actually I'm understaffed, or something like that. And nobody's going to say, I've got extra staff. And so you need somebody to take a really hard, belligerent look at it and say, do you really need this? That could involve outside expertise, you know, because when it comes to like police and fire, it's going to be a challenge for somebody in my staff to be able to
I get that.
evaluate.
Any other comments on that? Oh, Jamie? Yes, please.
So the business type is the one that's recorded in here, but we have to do a government-wide financials, and all that means that we take the government financials, and during the audit time, we also transition them into proprietary rules so that you can see, it's called a government-wide. It puts everybody on the same page just for investment purposes. So I don't have on my glasses, but I'm going to give this the best shot. So as of the end of 2020, for the business type activities, for the sick accrual, we accrued, for business type, which is just water and sewer, we accrued $135,102. And then for their vacation accrual, we accrued $126,196. That was just for your business type. Now for the general, general means, for this purpose, it means all generally coded positions. So you will still have your parks administration in this category. You will still have like fire administration in those, anything that covered under the general classification, because remember, we're putting it all back onto, like if it was a business run, it's called a government-wide. But here, included in that number, for a sick accrual for all general positions, the total sick accrual as of the end of 2020 for that purpose was, it's either 490, I think it's 451,941. I'm sorry, I should have brought my glasses. Are those readers?
Yes.
They might work. You care?
No. Don't spit on them.
Actually, wow, they do work. Thank you. Okay.
We'll get you some for Christmas.
451,941 was the total for sick, and for vacation was 528,621. And so that gives you some idea, because they're separated in categories, but your business type versus your all other general positions is separated. So that gives you some idea of what your accruals would be. And keep in mind, that's on the balance sheet. It's a balance sheet item, so it's already taken care of through your liabilities, and it's called a long-term accrued liability.
Do you use a simple multiplier for that, separate from police and fire? They're simply a number you assign to the number of salaries?
No, actually, we have to go down through and do every department, and we have it here. So every department, based on all of their codes, and then police, the actual operations of police is separate, and fire operations is separate, and then you have a general category, you have a police operations, a fire operations, and then your business type. And then we go down through every department, we run the reports, we do the calculations, we assume this on your government-wide statements in your comprehensive annual financial report, and that all comes together, and then that goes back into your liabilities that you will see. For business type purposes, you can look on the financials and see that that ties right back to your long-term.
Is that reconciled the year after by the next audit? Because
We do that annually, yes, sir. And so you may have employees that have used more in 1 year, so that will go down versus go up. And so, does that answer your question? It gives you some idea.
Yeah, just for clarity, if I added up the four numbers you gave, water, sewer, the 135, the 126, and then the general 451 and the 528, it comes to give or take $1.2 million.
Yes,
Does that
yeah.
Did that include police, fire? Did that include everything?
No, so if you include everything, and I'll give you the sheet so you can have it, because this is at the end of 2020, but if you include everything, it's about 1.9 million.
Okay, now that's a number.
And it's already included in your liabilities, so you gotta remember that every year we reconcile those liabilities, because they have to be for long-term purposes. We have to show that we have the ability to cover them, so they're in your, it's a balance sheet item.
Wow. So conceptually, if we, I really like that staffing study idea. If we, thank you, Jamie.
You see again?
Can you find your way back? Marco,
Yes, it's just.
help her get back. So conceptually, if I'm understanding this, is if we did change to a, let's say, after a staffing study, because I'd sure like to get some professional input, but if employees had 2 years or 3 years to use up combined PTO, protecting all of our banked 1.9 million, then it's not going to do anything for our budget today, but over the long term, I think it would make a significant difference. Jamie, significant difference, right? If over time, all the existing banked is paid out, and I know that's way down the road, but looking at long-term goals, then we would be accruing as a liability, say 2 or 3 years worth of PTO, right?
Yeah, so safe to assume, in your example, that if we already went and there's no time taken away, but they all used it or got paid out or something,
Right.
and you started fresh and clean, and they could bank up to, 3 years, let's just use that for an example, then as they bank it on an annual basis up to the maximum of 3 years, that'll be banked, but it'll significantly reduce that liability, because that liability will have gone away because it's either been paid out or used. Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I heard two great ideas up here so far, staffing study, and I really like the idea down there about our new employees staggering that somewhat.
Well, I'd be interested to see, is there any way we can, do we have statistics on employees with us 1 to 5 years? How many hours are making that 1.9 million chunk?
That would be easy enough to come up with, yeah.
Okay.
So now we're at a crossroad. We have a 1.9 million liability on our books, and if we don't make any changes, we're just going to continue. Close your ears, Jamie. But I'm wondering if this board has an appetite to make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen that we get maybe some bids for a staffing study and find a way to fund that, because I'm appreciating the fact it's 30 to 50,000, but the trade-off of that is monumental, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think there's enough, going with a consultant for this, I think there's enough study. I mean, like, my business went to the PTO system 4 years ago. And they were able to see a significant change. And I think there's enough data out there now that we could see that, and the consultant could get that for us and really see we're heading in the right direction.
I completely, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Again, Jamie, don't kill me. Should we consider including salary in that staffing study?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, make it
Absolutely,
staffing, salary, everything all together.
yes.
And I think the mayor's right. I think the place to start is we go out for bid, and let's find that number that we're really shooting at.
And then bring
And
it to the
then
board.
we can make a decision
Yeah,
at that
okay.
time.
All that salary information is in LMI already across the state, labor market information for employment security. You can go online, you can hit a particular position, and even in your entire region in the United States, they'll do that for free for you. So you can pay me the difference instead of the $10 per meeting that I just saved you. Okay.
You know, we had this.
Was that in a form of a motion?
Excuse me, Mayor. We had the conversation a couple of years ago about salary studies, and we went through that process, and we had an external firm do it. Ultimately, the comparatives that we developed from the HR committee didn't sync up with who the departments saw as their competitors, who they would lose people to. So I think it was 2 years ago, my staff did our own salary study. We actually polled the department heads and said, who are your competitors out there? Who do you lose staff to? And we went and polled those municipalities and such, did our own, and we got pretty good data off of that. My concern with any kind of external salary study is not knowing who the competitors are. That becomes the biggest challenge, simply because if you just go out and pick, you know, like our previous study, we had picked Harrison and Ozark and some local municipalities to which there was absolutely no comparison with respect to who we would lose employees to in different areas. And the dollar amounts were significantly off.
Can't we tell them who we want to be compared to and utilizing?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we're paying for this study. I would think we should be able to tell them these are the comparables, and I completely trust the directors on who they know who they're losing people to.
Well, the UI data and LMI data is extensive. We use it at the state quite a bit, and we have to do it through our workforce board for determining stuff like prevailing wage. It's out there. So the data's out there, and it is in depth.
One of our big, I'm sorry. Well,
It just takes the right questions being asked to get the right answers
Right.
you want. That's what it comes down to.
one of our biggest challenges is going to be, though, like with police and fire, both, whenever we lose people, sometimes we're not losing them to other municipalities. We're losing them to private industry.
Private entity.
Ask Springfield about Amazon, what that's done to them and their police, fire force. Yeah.
Well, and I think COVID in general, I mean, I had opportunities that I never had before and had recruiters reaching out to me while employed here. And I mean, people are just looking for motivated people, even if it's not the same position right now. So, I mean, competition's changed considerably in the past 2 years.
And I also think that in the last 2 years, salaries have changed drastically because we've seen that scale rise to where if you're going to get a good employee, when they talk about minimum wage at $15 an hour, but quite frankly, we've got $17 an hour minimum wage is more realistic. Is what we're competing with right now.
That's correct. So saying all that, I'm not sure the procedure, but would a motion, second, and a vote be appropriate to ask for, to get some bids on?
I think so. Are you?
Let me ask you a question real quick before we move on, Mayor. What we have discussed today and what we're proposing, does that still address items 1 through 5 that you need to have addressed, or are those two separate issues?
Well, I think it's going to address, primarily, it's going to address item 4, the balance for, you know, so we don't have to employ additional headcount simply to cover the large number of days off.
Did you get enough information for us to be able to address 1, 2, 3, and 5?
I think, you know, for that, yeah, absolutely, because we can come up with different methodologies for saving people's accruals as they be. You know, there's lots of different things we can do. We can require payout over time. We can have them offer them the opportunity to put it in a 401A or something like that, to where we save FICA on both sides. So there's lots of different opportunities there.
Well, the mayor hit on something here just a little bit. And, you know, that is, the longer you stay on the job, the greater you acquire increased numbers of retirement and just flat out numbers. And that would affect your number as well, as far as what has to be in that reserve. Am I right there?
Yes.
Okay. Thumbs up works. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, so to address Bill's point, I view this as, one is the staffing study, and their second topic is PTO.
Right.
So to cause movement, would we want, is a board member, committee member willing to make a motion that we move forward to get some bids on a staffing study?
I would gladly make the motion to seek out bids for full detailed staffing study with salaries included for the city of Branson.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? That's great. Now let's talk PTO. How does the board feel about, and if it's the right terminology, converting our sick vacation time to a PTO plan? Is that asked right? Melissa, you looked,
Are we talking about for existing employees also? Or are we
Yes.
just, okay, because my concern is if right now they have 100% of vacation time paid out and 50% of sick, if we convert everything to PTO, if they leave, then wouldn't we owe them 100% payout?
sure.
So-
And so the
okay.
suggestion is, don't touch anything in the past. The past is,
Okay.
those rules still apply until they're satisfied. Just when we make a decision to, if we made a decision to change, it would be from that day forward. But nobody's going to lose anything they've,
So they would have different you're talking about different pots of money. They'd have their vacation, they'd have their sick, and then going forward, they would have their PTO.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
is that clear with everybody? Yeah. So is there discussion of, I mean, it sure sounds like the PTO makes a lot of sense. Jamie's gone to it, right?
We have a speaker.
Kyle, we have a speaker on this?
I was just wondering if we could scroll down to the things that, what employees are expecting right now, just as we're discussing PTO, just reminding ourselves of what the employees are expecting with what they currently have.
Great input. Thank you so much.
Is there another page to this?
Yeah, there are.
Okay.
Oh,
So, to Kimberly's point, staff use it for traditional means, sick, vacation, personal business. They build it up for disability. They use it as a security blanket. Some of the things that I've already kind of talked about, they, again, they build it up as a supplemental retirement. And they look at it not maybe so much for retirement, but just, you know, hey, if I'm leaving employment here, I want credit for my hard work, and not being sick, not taking off while, you know, you're always going to have one employee who's gone all the time, another employee that stays at work all the time, and that kind of thing. They use it to take care of their ill family members. You know, now, like to Melissa's point, our structure as it sits right now precludes that from extended family. It's only for immediate family kind of thing. And supervisors and staff use the buckets as a guide for what's expected for employees to maintain a balance of work-life balance, that kind of thing. So,
Let me ask you something, and it just brought to attention, actually a little bit of a horror story here. I had enough time in the state of Arkansas to retire. And after I left and came up here, they changed the rules, and I have to go back and work 90 days in order to get my retirement. Anything that we do, I would hate to see us get into that situation with existing employees where something like that would be implemented by a board. I know that you can't go out and encumber things going in the future, but, you know, feel kind of strongly, since it directly affected me, 90 days or 5 days per week, add that up. How much longer I'd have to go back to Little Rock to work just to get a retirement that I was owed?
and that's one thing that I want to make sure that we be able to articulate to employees that we're not taking anything away from them, that we're not going to try to hurt them in any way. To your point, you know, from the retirement perspective, that loggers element is going to be something that's separate. It's pretty steadfast in how it works. They've got fairly rigid rules. They're well-funded, the whole 9 yards, so we're in good shape in that respect.
Couldn't be taken away from them.
No.
That's the good part.
I'm not entirely sure that we should be treating these items separately. If we're doing a salary and benefit study and staffing study, maybe these should be just all rolled into one and not rushing one thing through only to find out that we made the wrong decision.
That's a great suggestion. Jan, you agree with that?
We can do that.
Hey, Jan, just so I can, little things I sit here and I think about, and it's crazy, but, whoops. What about, how do the PTO treat holidays? Because I know, everybody sitting in here probably is off on the holiday, but does that get added to the fire guys and the police guys in their PTO bank, or?
No, not typically, but we can make our own rules.
I was just curious if we'd covered that. And
Yeah.
the other thing I would really like to see is actually, because I apologize to everybody else here, but one of my biggest jobs is to make sure that the balance is fair to everybody. And from what I heard you say earlier about the survey that we did with the employees, could we get those numbers put up at a future meeting?
Oh, absolutely.
So we can,
Yeah.
I need to know how much, well, and you do too, how much we need to talk to our employees to make sure they understand exactly how
Yeah.
this works.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And Melissa made a point that I haven't heard before. And in this study, do we have a system created where some employees are hesitant or reluctant to take time off because their work isn't being covered? I mean, are they pressured to, I need you here for these things?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's not a healthy
And
environment.
No, it's not, and I think that's where the staffing study will help
Yeah.
us.
Yeah,
A
thank
few
you.
years ago, we had a situation in the police department where, would we have 3 sergeants that were out on sick leave, and it was an FMLA. And when you've got 3 out of 7, that's a bunch.
Yeah,
When I first got here, we were authorized 45 employees, but we only had 37 working, and then we lost 3 sergeants
yeah.
to medical issues.
So I don't know if we need to amend our motion to include PTO in the staffing study, or is what we've already approved, the recommendation to get
I
bids,
think we can move forward with what we've.
you'll just include that in that, okay? Very nice.
He made a very good point again, and that is the issue of back training down one position in case something happens. Are we currently involved in that? Jamie's staff, any of the other staff, if somebody that leaves that second position well enough trained to step into that job if there's an extended stay for 1 to 2 weeks or 30 days?
We do. One of the issues, however, is that in government, we're not like private business where we can have that extra cushion, so to speak, of like a relief person. You'll find, car manufacturers, they have what are called reliefmen that come to work and do the job of those individuals that might be sick or something. Our problem is that we live on that razor's edge so much, and that in governmental business, that it's not that somebody else can't do it, it's that they also have a job. So they're doing 2 people's job at the same time. That's where we are.
I'll tell you, Bill made an excellent point, and I think it's healthy, and it would address this, I can't take the time off issue, is in every department, wouldn't it be healthy to have, in addition to the director, assistant director, whoever else, that if the director wanted to take 1, 2, 3 weeks off, that somebody is up to speed on all the components so they can fill those shoes. You would think that would provide some comfort for those that think like, well, I just can't take the time off.
I think that's an excellent idea, and that's going to
I do too.
That's going to be my pitch again for going with a learning management system where we can track that kind of stuff.
And
Stan
I think that
would-
staffing study will help with that. It'll tell us, hey, this is great, but you need another person because of
Yeah.
these job
Yeah.
situations that you're.
I just want to take a second to give kudos because your finance director over there does that exact thing. I'm pretty sure they didn't even miss me when I left. They were
That's
ready.
not what I heard.
I've heard they've missed you every day.
Yeah.
Are there things up here that would not be included in the staffing study with the scope of work we're going to provide?
I can't think of anything outside of, you know, the one thing that we've talked about is maintaining the accrual balances, those banks of time off. I wouldn't include that. There's no need for that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think everything should be fair game.
Very nice. Well, God forbid if we ended a meeting early, do we have other items to discuss?
Yeah, I'd just like, again, the things that you said, everybody said it, the disease of government is lack of efficiency. And I think that we have a very efficient system. And part of what I see that we're doing here would be able to address any type of infections to our system that we have as far as efficiencies goes. Was that part of our discussion as well? Because I think that we're very efficient. My staff in Springfield complained to me that they don't have enough staff. We were seeing last year, 100,000 people per year go through the career centers and job centers, and they were just absolutely blown away.
Yeah, as far as efficiencies goes, that's typically what staffing studies will do. They'll look at, you know, the required level of expertise for a specific role and then make a determination of whether or not you've got folks that fill that.
So move for ribs.
We do have some reports here, Mayor.
Jan?
Just had a thought, if I may, for 2 seconds. As an employee and as a director, you know, this is something we've talked about a few times in the last few meetings. And so I've gotten some feedback as you chit-chat with employees and things like that. And I think one major question and or concern as we talk about this is number 2 on the background information. It says, some staff builds it up as a disability insurance policy for themselves. And we talked about that, possibly, you know, getting another short-term disability policy. But what that short-term disability policy, you know, wouldn't cover, I presume, would be it can also be used for family members. And so that 20 hours, it's nice to have that there as a bank. So if someone, again, in your situation, Melissa, didn't help you as much, but for many, many others, if your spouse, your children, you know, has an illness, whatever, and they're in the house, you have that banked up, and short-term disability would not help in that scenario. And so that's kind of been a reoccurring theme that I've heard as others have talked about this. So I just wanted to throw that out there as food for thought, something to think about. Yeah. Thank you.
Point, Chad. Anybody in the audience want to address what we've discussed today?
I want to talk about the 24-hour conversion, only because I was here when it was implemented. And I was in a few director-level meetings when that was done too. And the reason why is the difference between sick and vacation is vacation, you have to have permission from your director to use it. Sick time, you don't. You just call in and you're sick. And they had employees that were calling in like on Monday mornings with hangovers, sick all the time. And so they created the 24-hour conversion to make it attractive for them to have 3 more vacation days versus they're sick. And that's why they put in the probation for the sick at the same time, to keep it from being abused. And I don't know enough about the PTO time to see, do employees have to get permission to use it, or can they just use it when they want to? And since I was here and I know how we got here, I just thought I'd bring that up.
Thank you very much. Jan, that'll be addressed in our study.
Sure.
Great, thank you for bringing that up. Good point. Anybody else have words of wisdom? Keith, I see your wheels turning. Nope. Nope, you're good? Here comes Kimberly.
just wanted to thank you all for taking the time and choosing to do the research with a staffing study before making a change to PTO, because it is a hot button issue with a lot of employees, and I think that will help them to understand where our needs are and that we've done due diligence in designing a plan that would be beneficial. So I just wanted to, as an employee and an employee advocate, thank you all for taking that time and putting a lot of thought into it before making a lot of changes.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Was that a compliment? Yes. Okay, I'm just checking.
I heard it as a I chose to hear that as a compliment.
We've got some reports now, Mayor, from Mr. Smithers.
Apparently, he's not catching on to the drift of this conversation.
I saw how slow he got up.
He'll only talk for an hour.
I'm going to be technical. Is he on the agenda? Is this an official item? I don't see him on the agenda.
Under reports.
Oh,
Oh, you're Mr. Reports.
Bob Smither, Risk Manager, City of Branson.
your address, please? I'm just.
110 West Maddox Street, Suite 315. So it's been a while since I've been able to update you, so I will be brief. Okay, I'm retired military. You know what be brief means, but I will be brief. A couple of things I just wanted to highlight, what we've been doing in risk management and safety lately.
Excuse me, Bob, before I
Yes.
forget, thank you for serving.
Oh, my pleasure, my honor, actually. So we've gone through and we've gotten our fire sprinklers and fire extinguishers inspected, updated, and maintained. We're currently getting fire alarms. They started today in the fire stations and the tower. They'll be coming to City Hall, but in City Hall, we do it after hours. So that's where they check every smoke detector, every sensor through the building. So we do that one after hours here, coming to a City Hall near you. We've also, in our safety training, have gone through our labor force and provided refreshers on hands-only CPR and how to operate AEDs correctly. And then I'm happy to report that in our efforts, and hopefully we're influencing this, I'd like to take some credit, but I don't know about this for sure, but we do have employees and departments out there that continue to have their mind on safety and look for ways to improve. And recently, you might have seen it in the newsletter that utilities took some of their concrete stair areas and painted them super bright yellow so that you have to see it. And it's those kind of the things we're always trying to train on, look out for hazards. Find them, address them. If you can't address them, let us know. And so those kind of things are still going on out there, even with currently without a safety officer, but we're doing what we can, and it's our employees are stepping up to fill that gap. What we're working on, so in all of our talk and discussion about public safety and salaries, it kind of turned my attention to our public safety and what are we doing out there in our public safety to mitigate and reduce risk exposures for our firefighters and police. I know they do a lot of great things. I just know that because they tell me that, but I actually have not been in discussions with them and go, what exactly are you doing? Is there anywhere that we can help you? For instance, common causes of injuries for firefighters are now carcinogenic chemical exposures, smoke inhalation, other respiratory hazards, fatigue, heat stress, unstable structures, slips, trips, and falls, electric shocks and burns, infectious disease exposure. These are all really important, life-changing injuries. And so as we continue to develop more attractions in the city and more businesses, I'm going to get with them and like, hey, tell me what you are doing. How do you, when you go to a fire call or a medical call, how do you know where that electrical panel is? How do you know what hazards to expect? How do you know if there are any, what we call IDLH, immediate dangerous life, hazards, chemicals, things like that? I know we do fire inspections and things like that, but I don't know what they do, and risk management wants that warm fuzzy and be able to jump in and provide some resources and assistance if we find any gaps in that, so that we can, over time, eliminate injuries to our public safety when they're out there going from 0 to 100 mile an hour somewhere to do something and do it as safe as they can, and those kinds of things. So that's on our radar. So I hope to come back to you with another time with a report on that and what we found and what we're doing. And maybe they're doing great things already. I just want to find that out. Yep. So that's on our radar for that. So that's my brief report today. So any questions?
Bob, thank you for doing that, for that follow-up, because you may, our police and fire for the public safety, boy, like you said, I have to believe, I want to believe that they're covering all the bases, but boy, another set of eyes. Thanks for doing that.
Real quick question, the use and training of people in this organization to use EpiPens for anaphylactic shock, do we go through that? Are there certain individuals that are trained on that, or certain clusters?
We haven't done it in a while, but we have gone through that in our training to talk about that and who may be allergic to those and what that. We actually looked into, for example, when we had the recycling center and they had bees.
Right.
We looked into, is that something that we should provide, and what's the liability and risk for the employer providing those? And that became a pretty high liability, so what we did was made sure that the employees were aware and had the resources to get EpiPens if they needed it, so.
The issue, which has become nationwide, is the issue of police and fire dealing with accidents with hybrid or electric cars, which is, it's resulted in some pretty nasty shocks and burns to some of them. Are we training them into that? Do we know that if that's part of their regiment?
Well, that's part of this project that I just mentioned. We want to find that out, so that's will be part of our discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Any other questions? Hearing none? Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Bob, very much. So I'm looking real clearly. After reports, what does that say?
I just have a brief report, Mayor. I'll be quick, sorry. The one thing I want to do is say kudos to Bob. He took last week off to be.
Was that annual?
What? Did you have a doctor's note?
He took last week off to be a part of the Branson Veterans Task Force, where he helped organize things. And the one thing that he did some work on is this one piece here, this Wreaths Across America, where they lay the wreaths at the graves of soldiers who've died over the years. This is kind of particularly near and dear to my heart. I've got a brother in a cemetery that they don't do that for. And I think it's important that we all participate in something like that. So that's one of those things, Wreaths Across America, Branson's Veterans Task Force.
And I'm sorry, I was going to look up that date. Is it
December 18th is when they're going to do it.
December 18th at 11 o'clock?
Whereabouts?
At the Ozark Memorial Park.
The one over, this, between here and
Ozark
Forsyth?
Memorial Park.
Yeah, over,
E76.
yeah.
It is on East 76, the Ozark Memorial Park Cemetery out there. And so our goal is to place 1,100 live wreaths on every veteran grave out there. We started this last year, our first annual. This is our second annual. And we need about 200 more wreaths to meet that goal. They're $15 a piece. You can go to bransonveterans.com and find your way there, and you can donate right online. Live wreaths come to town, and we put them out on December 18th.
I'd definitely like to be out there. My father-in-law was an NZO survivor.
You bet.
And Purple Heart and Silver Star, their whole group over there. And they were overflown by the Tuskegee Airmen. That was the only reason they stayed alive. And I'd definitely like to be out there for that.
Bob, this contribution is bransonveterans.com?
Yeah, bransonveterans.com. You'll find a link to Wreaths Across America there. And by clicking and going through that, it identifies us. And when you donate a wreath there, it comes to this location.
So everybody listening.
And the last date is for donations, November 30th.
Yes,
according
November
to-
30th is our deadline, so that these wreaths come from Maine, and they're shipped through several trucking companies. Last year, we had a veteran actually drive the truck into town, would do a police escort to get it to the cemetery a few days ahead of time. We've got local groups, volunteers coming out to mark all of the gravestones. And then on the 18th, all those who attend are invited to help lay wreaths.
And this date is December 8th?
That's December 18th.
18.
Likely to be a cold morning.
Time?
11 o'clock is the ceremony.
Thank you for bringing that up. I know how veteran-friendly our city is throughout the year, and this is a new program. It's the second year, and Bob, I can really see the community getting behind this. That's
Yeah,
such an honor.
absolutely.
Thank you for that.
And if I was guessing, I'm going to guess that somebody might be playing the trumpet out there. Just saying.
A lot of speculation there.
The last piece I have, Mayor, is just want to communicate that we're going to have open enrollment for benefits December 6th through 10th. We will be doing those virtually. We will be sending out sign-up information here shortly. If necessary, we will provide computer access and human resources if employees need that. So,
December 6th through the 10th is the open enrollment.
yes, sir. And that's all for my report.
Do our employees, do they have enough information to help guide them through?
We will be meeting with employees. We'll probably be doing a group meeting in here, and we will probably record that and make that available for employees as well.
Excellent, excellent. I'm going to try a reverse psychology. Instead of going to adjourn, I'm going to say.
Motion to adjourn.
Are there any other reports? We had a motion to adjourn,
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, I double